All right, so we're back. So we're going to solve systems of equations. Okay. So they want us to use the method of substitution. Elimination would be great because these two would cancel out and you're left with 2x equals 4 and you get x is equal to 2. But we can't use that. So substitution means that we're going to get one of the variables by itself. I have x plus y is equal to 1. So traditionally people get the y by itself. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and get the x by itself just to show you. Minus x. So this cancels out, so I'm left with y is equal to 1 minus x. Okay, so wherever I see a y here, I'm going to plug in 1 minus x. So I'm going to plug this in. So I get x minus, and the new y is going to be 1 minus x is equal to 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and simplify this to get the x by itself. There's an imaginary 1 right there, so I'm taking that negative 1, I'm going to distribute it. So I have negative 1 times 1, which is negative 1. And I have negative 1 times negative x, which is a positive x, is equal to 3. And then now I want to get the x's by itself. So I have x plus x is equal to 2x minus 1 is equal to 3. Add 1, I get 2x is equal to 4. Divide both sides by 2, and I get x is equal to 2. So I want to solve. So I don't just have an x, I have an x and a y. So it's easy for me to take this right here to get the y and plug it into the original right there. So I'm going to get x plus y is equal to 1. I'm just rewriting this whole thing right here. My x I know is going to be 2, so I'm going to substitute 2. So 2 plus y is equal to 1. To get the y by itself, I'm going to subtract both sides by 2. So I get y is equal to negative 1. So my two answers are x equals 2 and y equals negative 1. There's my solution. I can write it like that. I can write it as 2 comma negative 1, whatever you would want. Okay, so there's your solutions right there. This one very similar. So I'm going to go ahead, take a look at this. I'm going to substitute. So I am going to go ahead and rewrite this right here. I have x plus 2y is equal to 8. I'm going to go ahead and subtract x from both sides, minus x. So this cancels out, so I'm left with 2y is equal to 8 minus x. Divide both sides by 2, and I get y is equal to this thing right here. So 8 divided by 2 is 4 minus x over 2. All right, so wherever I see a y, I'm going to plug all of this in. So this whole thing gets plugged in for the y right here. So I'm going to rewrite, this is my y. This is my plug-in. So I have 3x minus 4, and my new y is going to be 4 minus x over 2, and I set that equal to 4. So my goal again is to get the x by itself. So I'm going to multiply that right there. So I get 3x minus 4 times 4 is 16. So minus 16. Negative times negative is a positive. And I have 4 times x over 2, which I'm going to deal with in a second. I don't want to do too much. So 4 times x divided by 2 can be rewritten as 4x over 2. I'm going to bring everything else down. Minus 16. 3x comes down. So same thing, I'm going to leave this right here. 3x minus 16. 4 divided by 2 is 2x is equal to 4. 3x plus 2x is 5x minus 16 equals 4. Add 16 to both sides. I get 5x is equal to 20. Divide both sides by 5. And I get x is equal to 4. All right, so now that I have x equals 4, I take it and plug it back into my original. So here's my new x is going to be 4 plus 2y is equal to 8. Subtract both sides by 4. So I get 2y is equal to 4. Divide both sides by 2. And I get y is equal to 2. So my two answers are x equals 4 and y equals 2. Undo. And y equals 2. 2. There's my answer. Okay. This last one right here. So I think it's easier to go ahead and get this right here by itself. So get the y by itself. So add y to this side and that side. That cancels out. So I get 2x is equal to y plus 4. I want to get the y by itself, so subtract 4. So I get 2x minus 4 is equal to y. So now wherever I see a y, I'm going to plug in 2x minus 4. So wherever I see a y, I'm going to plug that in. Hi, Julie. So I have the x squared comes down. So I'm taking this equation and just rewriting it. So x squared comes down. My new y is this whole thing. So it's going to be plus. You're so cute. You brought me a fry. You eat it, Bubba. So my new y is going to be 2x minus 4. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to square it. And that has to give me 13 as my answer. Okay, so over here, I'm going to have something squared. When I square something, I multiply it by itself. So it's going to be 2x minus 4 equals 13. And I'm going to add x squared to it. So here, I'll change the color so you can see what's going on. I'm going to FOIL. So 2x times 2x gives me 4x squared. 2x times negative 4 gives me negative 8x. I'm going to do the same thing here. I get negative 8x. And then this last part is going to give me positive 16 equals 13. And I'm going to have an x squared right there. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and combine like terms. So I get x squared plus, this is 1x squared plus 4x squared is 5x squared. Negative 8x is negative 16x. That plus 16 comes down is equal to 13. And then here the goal is to get the x by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 13 from both sides, minus 13. So I get 5x squared minus 16x plus 3. That cancels out, is equal to 0. I'm going to do AC method, which I showed you some time ago. My battery is running low. Let me get that charger. So AC method is very simply, okay, just making sure it's charging, is quite simply this. So you take A times C, multiply it together, you get 15. This B term goes on the bottom, negative 16. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to be 15 and add to be negative 16. So negative 15 and negative 1 is going to be my two answers. It's AC method, so my A doesn't change, my C doesn't change, so it's going to be 5x squared. This plus 3 comes down. My middle term gets broken into negative 15x and negative 1x. And right here is where I split it down the middle. So I'm going to have 5x coming out. I'm left with x minus 3. Over here, I know I want an x minus 3 on the inside. So I'm going to factor out a negative 1. I can check my work. And so my two answers are going to be 5x minus 1 and x minus 3. And both of them I'm going to set equal to 0. So I have x equals 3. You just literally flip the sign. And I get 5x minus 1 equals 0. Add 1 to both sides. I get 5x is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 5. And I get x is equal to 1/5. So I have two answers for my x. I have 3 and 1/5. So now I'm going to take these and plug it back in. So I'm going to start with x equals 3. So if x equals 3, I'm going to plug it into this one right here. I'll just plug it into the top one. So x equals 3, so I'm going to get 3 squared plus y squared is equal to 13. So I get 9 plus y squared is equal to 13. Subtract 9 from both sides. So I get 13 minus 9, and I get 4. So y squared is equal to 4. And I know that y is going to equal positive negative 2. So I want to see which one is correct. So to make sure, I can go ahead and plug it into the second one. So I have 2 times 3, right? minus y equals 4. So let's see which one the answer is. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 minus y is equal to 4. So I know that y is going to equal 2, because 6 minus 2 equals 4. So if x equals 3, then y equals 2. So that's one solution. The other one is, let's do it right here. The other one is x equals 1/5. So I'm going to go ahead and I should just plug it into the second one just to make it easier. So 2x minus y equals 4. 2, my new x is 1/5, minus y equals 4. So 2 times 1/5 is 2/5, minus y equals 4. So I want to figure out what makes this true. So to do that, I'm going to do 4 minus 2/5, get an answer. And so I get negative y equals 3.6. And then I want to flip the sign, so I get y is equal to negative 3.6. I want to keep my answers in fractions just because that's a fraction as well. So I'm going to go math, fraction, enter, and I get 18 over 5. So I get y is equal to 18 over 5. So if x equals 1/5, y equals 18 over 5. That's my two answers. That took a very long time. All right, so elimination. Elimination means that I take one of them and I get rid of each of the variables. So I noticed that if I can take this top one right here and make it a negative, that would work. So I multiply it by -1. So my new equation is going to be negative x minus 2y equals -1. I'm going to keep the second one as is, plus 2y equals 13. This cancels out, so I'm left with 4x is equal to 12. Divide both sides by 4, and I get x is equal to 3. So if x equals 3, I take it and plug it back into my original. So I get x, which is equal, so x plus 2y equals 1. I'm going to plug in my 3 here, so 3 plus 2y equals 1. Subtract 3 from both sides. Zoe's ball is stuck under the couch, so she might bark in a second. Divide both sides by 2, so I get y is equal to -1. So if x equals 3, y is equal to -1. There's my elimination. All right, over here. So this would be great if this was a positive 16. So if I multiply this whole thing by -4, so I'm going to get negative 36y squared plus 16 negative 36y squared plus 16 x squared equals, what's -4 times 36? I don't know. -4 times 36. I'm going to get -144. -144. The top one's going to stay the same. 25y squared minus 16 x squared equals 400. And then now if I add these go away. So 25 minus 36 minus 36 is equal to -11. So I have -11y squared. Oh, Joey, I'm sorry. Is equal to 400. 400 minus 144 is equal to 256. 256. Divide both sides by -11. You get y squared is equal to 256 divided by -11. 256 divided by -11. Oh crap. Let's see if it's a fraction. So I'm just going to leave it as -256 over 11. And then to get the y by itself, I want a square root. So y is equal to the square root of -256 over 11. And then I'm going to take this and plug it back into the original. So I have 9. My new y is going to be the square root of -256 over 11. squared minus 4x squared is equal to 36. So when I have a square root and a square, they just cancel each other out. So I'm left with negative 256 over 11 times 9 minus 4x squared equals 36. I don't like this problem at all. So 9 times negative 256, 9 times negative 256 is equal to some crap, divided by 11. Let's see if that helps us. No, it's more crap. Math, frac, negative 23 over 4, 2304 over 11. So negative 2304 over 11 minus 4x squared is equal to 36. So I'm going to do 36 plus that crap that I just got. So I'm going to do 36 plus my answer from before. Let me just stop being lazy. 36 plus 2304 divided by 11. I'm going to get that answer into a fraction. It's 2700 over 11. So I'm going to get negative 4x squared is equal to 2700 over 11. Divide both sides by negative 4. Divide both sides by negative 4. I hate this problem. So I get x squared is equal to negative 675. X squared is equal to negative 675 over 11. And I want to do square root. Square root. So I get x is equal to the square root of negative 675 over 11. So there are your two answers for x and y. I hate that problem. Okay, anyway. This one right here. So I have to do this problem using elimination. So I am trying to eliminate one of the variables. And very similar, I see that if I can get this to be a negative 3, then these can cancel out easily. So I multiply this whole thing by 3. So the top's going to stay. So it's 2x squared plus 3y squared is equal to 30. And then the denominator, the bottom one is going to have 3x minus 3y squared equals negative 3. And so now if I add these cancel out. So I'm left with 2x squared plus 3x is equal to 30 minus 3 is 27. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over. So I get 2x squared plus 3x minus 27 is equal to 0. So I can do quadratic formula here, or I could do AC method. Why don't I do quadratic formula, because I haven't done that in a while. So that's going to be negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I'm going to plug numbers in. So I have negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared, which is 9, minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a, which is 4. So I'm going to take my calculator and just plug in what's under the radical. So I have 9 minus 4 times 2 times negative 27. And I'm going to get 225 as my answer. That works out. So that's going to be negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 225 all over 4. Square root of 225 is 15. So I'm going to get negative 3 plus or minus 15 over 4. 15 minus 3 is 12 divided by 4 is 3 is one answer. Negative 3 minus 15 is negative 18 over 4 is my second answer. Negative 18 over 4 can be reduced, cut in half. It's going to be negative 9 over 2. My two answers are x is equal to 3 or negative 9 over 2, negative 4.5. So to find my y's, I'm going to take it and just plug it in, right? So I'm going to start with x equals 3. So if x equals 3, I'm going to plug it into that one. So I get 3 minus y squared is equal to negative 1. Joey, I'm so sorry. Minus 3 from both sides. So this cancels out. Negative y squared equals negative 4. Divide both sides by negative 1. I get y squared is equal to positive 4. And I get y is equal to positive negative 2. So if x equals 3, then y is going to equal positive negative 2. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. So same thing over here. If x equals negative 9 over 2. Okay, so if x is equal to negative 9 over 2, I do the same thing. X equals negative 9 over 2. So I'm going to plug in to the original. So I'm going to have negative 9 over 2 minus y squared is equal to negative 1. So I'm going to add 9 over 2 to both sides. So I'm going to have negative 1 plus 9 divided by 2. I get 3.5. So I get add 9 halves, add 9 halves. That cancels out. So negative y squared is equal to, what did I say? 3.5. 3.5. Divide both sides by negative 1. So I get y squared is equal to negative 3.5. Find the square root. So I get y is equal to the square root of negative 3.5. So if x equals negative 9 over 2, then y is going to equal the square root of negative 3.5. So that's one answer, that's another answer. Okay, let's go back. Thank God I'm done with those problems. Okay, so